Some, if not many of you, will remember the global smash hit comedy movie Crocodile Dundee. Premiering in 1986, it starred the Australian Paul Hogan, nicknamed Hogs, in the role of Mick Crocodile Dundee. Paul is of Irish descent and was born on the 8th of October 1939 in Greater Western Sydney, even though he told people he was born in the opal mining town of Lightning Ridge, New South Wales. He attended Parramatta Marist School and his first job was a rigger on the Harbour Bridge in Sydney. At the age of 31, Paul was scraping by to pay the rent. His first television appearance in 1971 was on the amateur talent program New Faces, where he pretended to tap dance while throwing knives, showing off his natural ability to create comedy. His audience loved him, and this led him to being invited on the show for repeat performances. Little did he know that this would be the beginning of a long and successful career. We'll go into more detail about this, but after a rags to riches story and an illustrious career in the film business, Paul was investigated for tax evasion by the Australian Taxation Office, ATO. Why and how did this come about, and what was the outcome? Keep with us to find out. So later in 1971, Paul secured a recurring role to bring some humor into the Australian news show A Current Affair. He became friends with one of the producers, John Cornell, who ended up becoming Paul's business partner, friend, and manager for many years. In 1973, Paul began writing and producing his own comedy series, The Paul Hogan Show, which achieved top ratings and aired up to 1984 in Australia. The show became popular in the UK and South Africa too, with John appearing in the show as a character called Strop. Paul had the gift of captivating his audiences with his refreshingly unique, coarse, unconventional, and uncultured character, cracking jokes in a broad Australian English accent, which the Australians referred to as an ochre or larrikin humor. He enamored his Australian public with his witty banter and sarcastic impersonation, which in 1973, the series winning him the TV Week Logie Award for Best New Talent. Paul became the face of Winfield cigarettes in print, on television, and billboards. In 1985, he played a role written with him in mind in the historic war drama miniseries Anzacs, demonstrating his versatility as an actor. In that year, he was also given the Australian of the Year award for being a global ambassador for the country. More appearances followed on British TV until he co-wrote and performed the role of the well-known and likable outback swashbuckler Mick in the movie Crocodile Dundee, which propelled Paul's career in a big way. In his personal life, Paul married Nolene Edwards on the 24th of June, 1958. He was only 18 years old at the time, became a dad at the age of 19, and by the age of 22 already had 3 sons. Their marriage lasted for 23 years as they divorced in 1981. They remarried the following year, but again divorced in 1986, which was thought to be one of Australia's most bitter celebrity divorces. They had 5 children together: Lauren, Clay, Scott, Todd, and Brett. After Crocodile Dundee II, Paul left his wife for his co-star, the much younger Linda Kozlowski, born the 7th of January 1958. He admitted that they had flirted on the set of Crocodile Dundee, but whilst filming Crocodile Dundee II, it became serious. Their affair caused a big stir and surprised people who thought he had a great relationship with Nolene. He married Linda on the 5th of May 1990, with the Australian public branding Linda as a heartless homewrecker, such that she felt uncomfortable living there. They moved to the U.S. Their marriage lasted 24 years, but ended in divorce on the 23rd of July 2014. They have a son named Chance. According to Linda, she felt that she lived in Paul's shadow and needed to fill her own light, plus they had simply grown apart. They've maintained a friendship after an amicable dissolution of their marriage. In 2017, when Chance was 19, Linda married Moulay Hafid Baba and moved to Morocco, where the couple ran an exclusive tourism business. Paul was devastated, not so much because of the marriage, as he had become friends with Moulay, but because of Linda moving far away. In 2016, Nolene opened up and revealed that she had felt betrayed by Paul's infidelity, and that Paul and her hadn't spoken for 17 years after their breakup. Nolene married Reg Stratton on the 21st of March 2000, who sadly passed away in early 2024. Paul and Nolene now have 10 grandchildren. Crocodile Dundee was not only the highest-earning Australian film, grossing $330 million globally, but also won Paul the 1986 Golden Globe Award for the Best Actor, Motion Picture, Musical, or Comedy, and he was nominated for Best Actor at the British Academy Film Awards. Many catchphrases including, "That's not a knife," "That's a knife," remain etched in fans' memories. Just after the movie came out, Paul suffered a brain hemorrhage and was hospitalized, which caused everyone huge concern, but thankfully he pulled through and recovered quite quickly. Paul co-hosted the 59th Academy Awards with Chevy Chase and Goldie Hawn in his usual down-to-earth and unrehearsed style. In 1988, Crocodile Dundee II was released, with Paul as executive producer and co-writer together with his son, Brett. Even though he didn't smash the charts, it was still a profitable success. Paul turned down roles left, right, and center, especially violent movies, saying that the movie scene was screaming out for the hero who doesn't kill 75 people, and that Mick's a good role model. He's not a wimp or a sissy just because he doesn't kill people. When he met the Queen in 1980 with his friend and well-known actress Olivia Newton-John, Paul was wearing shorts and a cut-off casual short-sleeved shirt, which caused quite a stir, and which he referred to as his summer working uniform. He also met Prince Charles and Diana in 1983 at the Melbourne Concert Hall, but then was dressed appropriately in a formal suit. Paul kept busy in the 90s. He and Linda starred in Almost an Angel in 1990, which he produced and wrote, but was a box office flop, as well as Lightning Jack in 1994, which fared only a little better. In 1986, he starred in Flipper, and in 1998, Floating Away. Many Americans will fondly remember his catchphrase such as, "Come down under," so he could slip another shrimp on the Barbie, which featured very successful in the promotional advertisement for Tourism Australia. The late 90s and early 2000s also saw him as the face for Subaru Outback car commercials. Paul's sidekick and longtime friend John Cornell was diagnosed with Parkinson's disease in 2001 at the height of his career, and when he pulled out of producing, he turned his attention to philanthropic endeavors. After a long battle with his illness, he died on the 23rd of July, 2021 at the age of 80. According to IMDb, Paul Hogan had stated in an interview that there wasn't going to be a third Crocodile Dundee film and had felt that the story of Mick Dundee had been finished, that he isn't James Bond and he doesn't go all over the world solving crimes. Nevertheless, Crocodile Dundee in Los Angeles, starring Paul and his wife Linda, and directed by Simon Windsor, premiered on the 12th of April 2001. In Paul's own words, it was a flop and many didn't even know it existed. Since then, his adoring Australian fans signed petitions for another Crocodile Dundee, but Paul hasn't been interested. In 2004, Paul featured in the film Strange Bedfellows. Dean Murphy was the director, and the movie made $5 million at the Australian box office. The plot featured Paul in the role of a theater owner, Vince Hopgood, who had just been through a divorce and had ended up with major tax problems. He asked his best friend Ralph, played by the iconic Australian actor Michael Caton, to act as his lover because he'd found out that there was a new tax loophole for live-in gay couples, which would mean he wouldn't lose his property. Ironically enough, the movie plot touched an issue which was about to raise its ugly head, the tax problem he faced soon afterwards. Dean also directed the 2009 movie Charlie and Boots with Paul and Shane Jacobson, the second highest grossing film in Australia that year. In the following year, Paul toured Australia, delighting his audiences with live stand-up comedy. Hanging with Hogs in 2014, which featured Shane interviewing him about his life, followed then by Hogs One Night Only in 2015. That's Not My Dog in 2018, and The Very Excellent Mr. Dundee in 2020. The latter being the last film Olivia Newton-John starred in prior to her death in 2022. The two-part miniseries entitled Hogs, in which Josh Lawson talks about the role of Paul, was released on the 12th of February 2017. It chronicles how Paul's appearance in New Faces completely changed his life in a way that he would never have expected. He'd burst onto the Australian comedy scene as a vibrant novelty and went on to wow the world. Paul's problems with the Australian Taxation Office, the ATO, started in 2005 with an audit and investigation into whether profits from Paul's movies was hoarded in offshore investments, eventually claiming that Paul owed them $150 million in unpaid taxes and penalties. In 2010, Paul returned from the U.S. to Sydney after his mother Flo passed away at 101 years old. The night before the funeral, he was slapped with a departure prohibition notice. Paul was outraged at being stuck in Australia without his wife and 12-year-old son, and was hopeful that the matter would be resolved promptly. However, the dispute went on for 8 long years, during which time he was barred from leaving the country. Paul was adamant that he'd done nothing wrong apart from paying Australian tax for far too long, when he probably should have just been paying American tax earlier. The federal court laid charges against Paul, John Cornell, and their financial advisor Anthony Stewart. All three parties denied any violation of tax laws. Finally, a confidential settlement without admission was agreed upon. Although there wasn't enough evidence to charge him, Paul's reputation amongst his Oz fans was tarnished. Paul claims that it made him angry and he hasn't got that out of his system yet. Paul's financial problems didn't end there. Shortly after the tax debacle was behind him, Paul claimed that his financial tax advisor, Philip Eglishaw, had absconded with $34 million, which he had supposedly invested in offshore tax havens for Paul. Paul sued the Swiss bank, Carthage Trust, for $80 million in damages, but the case has never been resolved. The Crocodile Dundee series has earned Paul a substantial net worth due to the fact that he raised the budget himself for the first movie and sold distribution rights independently, giving him an estimated 60% ownership stake of the $320 million it grossed globally. It's estimated that Paul had amassed a net worth of around $75 million, or according to Celebrity Net Worth, possibly even as much as $100 million. His wealth has been depleted due to the financial repercussions of his divorce from Linda, when she received $5.75 million out of the settlement, as well as the alleged huge loss suffered at the hands of his financial advisor, and it appears Paul's net worth has decreased to approximately $20 million as of mid-2024. So what is Paul Hogan doing now? He stayed at the U.S. solely to be with his youngest son, Chance, but admitted that he's been terribly homesick for years. In October 2020, Paul appeared in Australian's breakfast TV show Sunrise in a heartwarming long-distance reunion with his granddaughter Miley Hogan, a 7 News TV reporter in Sydney. This was an opportunity for Paul to also promote his autobiography, The Tap-Dancing Knife Thrower, a candid rendition of his life without the boring bits. The book was published on the 1st of November 2020 and has achieved good ratings since. Paul is now in his mid-80s and has already quipped that he's been held together with string after a battle with his health that left him frail. He'd maintained great fitness levels until the age of 79 and was then treated for problems with his aorta and a kidney, after which his health plummeted. In one of his latest appearances on the 1st of February 2024, Paul looked pretty good in a smart black shirt, suit, and pink tie as he strolled down the blue carpet at the annual Good Day USA Arts Gala, which showcased the best of Australia in the U.S. The event took place at Skirball Center in Los Angeles, where he pulled some funny faces and got some laughs from the photographers. Paul labels himself as a lucky bastard, saying, "I've had such a good life. I've had so many wonderful things happen to me without deserving them, so I shouldn't complain, but yeah, ideally I'd rather be back in Sydney because I miss the rest of my family there." Hopefully he gets back down under to enjoy his latter years, as he does deserve that after all the decades of hilarity he's given the world. Thank you for spending some time with us. Make sure to like and subscribe so you never miss another video. We also handpick these videos, which we recommend you watch next. You can talk to us on all social medias or ask a question in the comments below. Thank you for being with us, and we'll see you back tomorrow.